So our first question, being a jazz ensemble professor, what aspects of jazz have you seen been incorporated into funk music?
It's a lot of kind of the other way around in many ways. I mean, funk is a genre of jazz of all its own. It's like lots of musics are considered jazz music. Funk has its own distinct flavor. Um, the jazz ensemble I direct often plays funk style tunes. Not exactly like Lakeside and Ohio Players and all those guys, but the rhythms and the syncopation, oftentimes the use of horn sections and guitars and things is used in jazz band often a lot. And again, it's based on the style tune that you're playing.
Sure, that's a good answer. We love the openness because we didn't know if it was going to be like they played into each other or just like one way or
Right.
the other. So thank you for that. Looking back at Dayton's history, the city was booming in the early 1940s and 50s. Why did Dayton become such a desirable place for individuals to go into the period of the Great Migration?
I don't know a whole lot about that part, but I can only imagine that geographically it plays it's historically important because of where it is. Just north of Cincinnati, which is a much bigger city and perhaps a more lively musical scene in the genres that probably weren't as much funk. And we're not far from Chicago. That's Columbus out to the east and all those kind of things. But this was a music town. We had Central State and Wilberforce close to each other, so you had the African American population, and it didn't. It's one of those places. It doesn't really cost a whole lot. The cost of living in Dayton isn't as high as other places, and it was a good place for the music to grow and to prosper. So I think the geographically the location was important.
Good, we agree. With the civil rights movement, we find a lot of individuals during that time coming forward in protest, speaking out about the injustice and using their voice. How did this time period influence music and the culture of Dayton?
Well, anytime there is social stress, if you want to call it a social injustice, as you say, or there's tension socially. Musicians, artists of all kinds, have the opportunity to. That's often their voice is to express themselves through their craft, and music in every means actually is a perfect venue to do that. With all the racial tension going on at the time, and Ohio's, the state of Ohio, and it wasn't as, how shall I say, it wasn't as big a problem. I don't say it wasn't a problem as in the South and Alabama and Mississippi in those days, but what Ohio and particularly Dayton was able to do comfortably was the musicians here was to be able to express themselves through their music and to say what they kind of wanted to say.
I love that. During the 60s and 70s, with racial and cultural unrest, many Black Americans wanted their voices to be heard. Even looking back historically, with such artists like Paul Laurence Dunbar with Why the Caged Bird Sings, who are those speakers during that time period?
Well, to me, the speakers were all the musicians who found venues and ways to express themselves musically. I'm sure that Paul Laurence Dunbar is huge in the poetry and literature world. As far as music goes, Lakeside was a great group. Slave, the Ohio Players, their music expressed how they felt. Much of their music, expressed how they felt with all that was going on around them. I being a musician myself, I know that our environment often influences what we write, what we say, how we play. So it's interesting to listen to the music that was created during those periods, because it does not only just hint at, there's parts of what musicians felt expressed through their music.
So going off of that, would you say that the artists were expressing their own voice, or were they more expressing the voices of like their fans who couldn't be as loud as them?
That's the joy of being an artist, is that you get to express how you feel and how other people feel that don't have the voice that you have as an artist. So a lot of their music is built off of what Martin Luther King was saying at the time, and other civil rights patrons and civil rights leaders were saying, and expressing their oh gosh, how shall I say, expressing their beliefs in what other people were saying. If there was some negativity, they would in many ways imitate or say what other people are saying through their music.
Good, thank you. Some wanted to voice change through songs such as James Brown with his song "Say It Loud." Where did we see these effects from this call of change within the music community and like Dayton's community overall?
All right, say that question again.
Some wanted to voice change through songs such as James Brown with his song "Say It Loud."
Right.
Where did we see like the effects from that song or any other songs, like towards the call to change, like within the music community and Dayton
Right.
community?
Well, what songs like that did is gave a voice to other people that didn't sing, that weren't James Brown, but he was able to say what other people were feeling and then put it to music. So now it kind of gave you the freedom to say, say it loud, I'm black and proud, because you were singing what James Brown had written, but at the same time expressing perhaps expressing your own feelings, your own thoughts about what's going on in life. And in many ways, James Brown and a lot of the music from around his time had a lot to do with the African American population becoming not only vocal, but a little bit more, shall I say, I guess, present, a little bit more out in public. Because now they had, they had their own style of music that was saying what they were thinking, as opposed to just speaking, not having the opportunity to speak it in other places.
That's a great answer. With Dayton's rich arts and culture scene, what do you think were the specific features Dayton funk had that made the music scene so prominent?
I would say the specific features would be the depth of the artistic talent here in Dayton. There are a lot of great musicians that have come through here, that were bred here, that were born here, and that took who and what this city was with them to other places. So there's not particularly at least from my understanding, a Dayton style, as much as it is a style that was kind of bred, not so much bred because that's the wrong word, a style that was influenced in many ways by the many artists here.
Thank you. Even though the funk genre caught on and was becoming very popular across the nation, what impact did the funk scene and this expression of voices and various artists through their music have on the city of Dayton specifically?
I would say that it gave a presence to a certain part of Dayton, particularly on the west side, the northwest side. It put that part of the city kind of on the map. If I can't say that if it weren't there that it wouldn't be noticed, but I know that when you travel, when you go to the Funk Museum and when you visit where those artists lives, and you begin to see how that environment shaped who they are and built the community. And because a lot of the community on the West Side is built around who those artists were. I play with many musicians that still talk about, the artists in those funk bands.
Very nice. What would you say the impact, like the funk genre, had on the country? Not just Dayton, but like maybe the country as a whole.
Oh, that's powerful. Had it not been for funk, a lot of other musics probably wouldn't have started or wouldn't have been created. The use of again, instruments and guitars together. Although the guitar had been around, but blending it with instruments and just the hard groove, the syncopation, that has had a huge influence on other musics.
Mm-hmm.
And other musics have influenced funk as well.
I agree. Dayton was flying high for many years, and then things started to decline in the 80s with the collapse of the Rust Belt, with thousands of employees being laid off and the city taking a big hit. With this being just before you came to Dayton in '93, did you notice this economic decline affect Dayton's art and culture scene at all?
I can't say that I noticed because I didn't know that much about the art scene here in Dayton when I arrived. So, I had heard about, I had a little knowledge about, the funk bands here and its history in a way, but how the Rust Belt thing and all that, just the closing of plants affected it, I wasn't very in tune with that.
Okay, that's fine. We can move on then. So now we're kind of getting more into closer to the 2000s. We see that bands have also declined in popularity, and genres like hip-hop and rock took their place. Where did that soul and passion for funk go that was once very present?
Well, I don't think it went anywhere. It just kind of declined. Funk bands are usually rather large. You got yourself a drummer, and you got yourself a bass player, and you got to have a guitar player in there. You usually got to have at least one or two keyboard players for the synth sounds and those kind of things. Then you got to add some horns. So a funk band can be 10 to 12 people, large. And the cost of having a band like that and booking a band like that is just expensive. So I would say that's in building funk to that level was almost kind of to its demise as well. And it's a lot easier when you're hip hop comes in and you got yourself a little a record player, or you can scratch music on a CD player or a computer, and a rapper, and you don't need that many musicians. So I would say the demise kind of started when with the increase in technology. It's a lot easier to do things with a computer and a CD player and come up with those kind of grooves.
So, like the presence of technology.
Oh yeah, the
kind
presence of
took away the
technology,
soul, or
right?
Not took away the soul, but to me, I feel like there's more passion with more people. And
Oh,
bands
it
and
certainly is,
Yeah.
but unfortunately, passion doesn't pay bills.
It's true. So, from what I can remember from our pre-interview, you were not born and raised in Dayton, correct?
No, I
Okay.
was not.
So how would you compare the culture of music between your hometown and Dayton? Then?
Oh, much more rich. It's much richer here, much more enriched, and much more influential. I mean, when you get a chance to speak with and hang out with and even perform with musicians that know of the rich cultural history, music history here in town, it's very powerful.
It's good to hear. You've been here a long time, so.
Yeah, exactly.
How or why did funk persuade you to go into music? And to go off that, what influences of funk came into your personal creations of music?
I won't say that it was funk music that persuaded me to go into it as much as my dad being a band director. I mean, that's why I went into music. But what was the second part of the question? I can't say.
What influences of funk music came into your own personal creations?
Oh yeah, I still remember to this day many of the Lakeside and slave songs, heat wave tunes that we did that I listened to in high school. I even started my own band and recreated many of those tunes. So it had a huge influence on me, particularly in when it comes to my style of playing. You know, I that's what I listen to. I listen to funk music. So even if I'm going to play swing jazz, it's probably going to have some funk elements in it.
Nice. So before you were a professor at the University of Dayton, you were teaching at the University of Alabama. What were some of the cultural differences in music education that you noticed between the two schools?
I didn't talk very much about black music, that's for sure. And you know, I guess that was the main thing. And I was still young in my college teaching days, so I kind of stuck to traditional jazz, and I taught classical saxophone too. So there wasn't a whole bunch of funk influences there in Alabama.
Okay. That honestly kind of surprises me.
Ah.
I was kind of expecting the opposite answer, but
Right.
good answer nonetheless. Thinking about funk music and these artists using their voice or music to express themselves, how does your passion for playing the saxophone as well as your passion for funk music contribute to the community and teaching?
Oh, goodness. I would hope that through my teaching and through my playing, that whoever's learning or listening can hear or sense the passion I have about my craft and my joy about teaching. And that could be, you know, in a funk genre or a jazz genre or playing classical saxophone. I don't specifically teach with unless I'm teaching a course or a piece about funk. Everything I try to do is I try to do with passion, so that people can kind of sense that, and if they have questions about what I'm doing or what I'm thinking, I can share that with them.
Very nice. We're going to keep going with saxophone.
How many pages you got there?
I have 3 full ones, and then, so this is the last full one, and then I have 3 more questions after that.
Okay.
So you've performed the saxophone in a couple different countries. How would you say that funk music has affected the rest of the world compared to the United States, if you're able?
Oh, you can tell that by listening to artists from other countries. I can't name those artists, but I remember distinctly being in Paris and being in Sydney, Australia, and even in Tokyo. It's like, that sounds so much like so and so. So it's a powerful medium, and it's interesting to see how artists from other countries have kind of tweaked funk to fit their own style. So it's had a very powerful impact.
Would you say that funk music is still alive in the rest of the world?
Yeah, in its own, in a different way now. Technology's kind of changed that. It's not the same as it was in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, but it's certainly there. The elements of funk are still present.
That's good. Since becoming a professor at the University of Dayton in 1993, how have you noticed the presence of funk music in music education? And could you explain like the evolution?
Certainly couldn't explain the evolution in a music education sense, and oftentimes, at least from what I noticed here, it's not incorporated in music education quite so much. It has been, as of recently, we have a new hire in Dr. Latasha Thomas Durrell, who sees the importance of adding not just funk, but all different styles of music into the music education classroom, make sure students understand it's not just about concert band or singing Bach in the choir, but enriching their lives with all different kinds of music. I'm not so directly involved in the music education part of teaching students, other than educating them musically in what I do, which is solo saxophone and teaching jazz band. But from a course, music education course sense, that's handled by our music ed staff, and she's done a wonderful job of including different genres. It's hard to pinpoint or even just spend a lot of time on one genre in music when you're trying to teach band directors that have to know, or choir directors that have to know a whole lot of different styles of music, because that's the type of student they deal with. Not every student's going to like funk, so some might like country, some might like rock and roll, so you kind of have to cover all that.
As the director of the Dayton Jazz Ensemble, how would you say you make an effort in keeping funk music alive within your students?
Oh, by playing funk tunes. And helping students understand how to play it correctly, because they don't listen to it as often as I'd like them to listen to it, or if they listen to it at all. But teaching the elements of funk, the style of funk, and how to make it sound authentic.
Very nice. So on top of that, why does funk influence what you teach and how you teach it? Like, why do you find it important to keep it around?
Because it offers a style of music that's not present in other styles. Nothing's we do is like, you can't play Latin music and make it funky. Well, you can, but then it's not Latin music. All right, so my band, it's important for them to understand, the strong, all the different elements of what we do, a funk style, a Latin style, a swing style, a rock style, whatever the style is, it's important for them to do that. I lean a lot on funk kind of music because I know that my students, or most students here at UD for that matter, don't get a lot of it. So it opens up a whole nother world for them.
That's very nice. I like that answer. Even though we have some individuals and groups in the community trying to preserve funk and to keep it going, Dayton has continued to struggle with economic and social problems, especially after the 2008 recession. Are you able to touch on the main effects from that and its impact on music education?
Can't say that I could answer that question in a very knowledgeable kind of way.
Okay, how about, how did the recession maybe affect, the Dayton public schools, or just schools across the country with, defunding arts programs?
Right. Well, as I said before, it's because funk bands are very diverse in instrumentation. There's a lot of components to it, and I can only imagine, actually I'm pretty sure, that a lot of the bands were created from high school. Hey, let's get together and start playing. And they had access to school instruments, and that helped them build their bands or build their style. And as just things got more expensive, it wasn't bands weren't able to, programs or schools weren't able to provide, guitars and all the different kinds of instruments that funk bands needed. So that's had a huge impact. The music programs in the Dayton Public Schools has changed drastically since I've been here. So just the economics of maintaining a music program kind of did itself in as far as that goes.
It's unfortunate because that's, like you said, that's where a lot of the passion and fire kind of starts.
Right, exactly. It does.
Yeah. In regard to music education and contributing musically to the community and the world as funk did in the 70s and 80s, where do you think the city of Dayton is today, music-wise? And, is the culture still there? Are there improvements to be made?
Oh, there's always improvements to be made. That's a foregone conclusion. Dayton is it's not where it was in the 70s and 80s. There are pockets of funk. Depends on where you go, but it's changing because times have changed and the economics of where Dayton is has changed. So hopefully, with the place like the Funk Museum and some of the people still trying to keep the music alive, it'll still be present, at least.
Are there any specific innovations or unique characteristics that set Dayton's funk music apart from other regional funk scenes in the U.S.?
No, not distinctly Dayton. No, it's just that there were a lot of funk bands here, and then as they spread out, they took their music and their style with them and shaped music where they were with other musicians.
We're getting to the end here. Just a couple more. What do you think the future of funk music in Dayton looks like?
Oh, that's interesting. I'm hoping to see the influence of hip hop and funk come together, which has started in some places, but the older artists getting with some of the newer artists, and then melding a new sound together. That's what I would hope to see, so that they both can exist with each other.
Very nice, yeah. I'd definitely like to see funk music be kept alive, because as we've been doing this funk documentary and like learning the different like bands and songs and everything, we've seen a lot of sampling
Right.
and everything in newer songs. So now when I hear one, I'm like, I really do hope it stays around. So how important is it to have music education within a city or a community?
Oh, how important is it to breathe? I mean, music education's just like art education. All the the artistic genres of education are important to creating the whole person. You just can't be an engineer. You can, but then life's just boring if you don't have a way to express yourself.
Very nice. My professor knew that one was gonna get some passion out of you. Well, I guess you already answered that question. We'll move on. How can we find ways to improve music education within the city of Dayton?
Fund it and get more people involved. That would be particularly the big corporations. Let them begin to show them the importance of music education and how you don't have to be a musician to be musically educated. I mean, to want music education, but you could getting businesses and people in higher places, to support it.
With the decline of some of the music programs, have you also seen like a decline in students joining programs?
Oh, most certainly. Yeah, if middle schools and beginning schools can't get the seed started, then it's tough for the music to blossom.
Part of our story is talking about funk history, as some historians and funk experts coin Dayton as the land of funk. What does funk mean for the rich history of Dayton's art and culture scene? And what does it mean for the community and citizens of Dayton?
Because of its existence, its growth here in Dayton, it gives a distinct kind of character, a distinct acknowledgement of the importance of this city. So I think it's important to keep the music, keep the fact that funk was born and bred here in many ways, because no other city can claim that. And the fact that so many bands came out of Dayton and spread the music across the globe makes Dayton unique.
I agree. Okay, so this is our last question. It's a pretty tough one. Do you have any favorite funk songs or any that stand out to you?
Oh yeah, I like Roller Coaster. I like the slave song Slide, and almost anything that Lakeside did, I just got into.
Very nice. Does anyone have any questions they want to ask?
I think I have one.
Go ahead.
So I don't know if there's anyone like at UD who has not seen your like light up coat that you wear to the basketball games.
Uh-huh.
And so like part of funk is also kind of like the whole production of it.
Right. Oh yes.
Yeah. Is there like any influences that you see come through with like trying to make like the music fun and things like that?
Being a trained musician, fun comes from executing the music stylistically correct, rhythmically correct, harmonically correct. So that's the fun part to me. You know, when I played in funk bands, you know, moving across the stage and, you know, dancing to the music all made the music fun, so to speak, at least to the, I felt to the listener or the watcher. But to me, it was still about making sure that you're playing musically correctly, stylistically correctly of the genre.
Very nice.
Mind if I toss a question in there as well?
Oh, go right
If you
ahead.
don't mind. I think you mentioned earlier your dad was a choir director,
Band director.
band director.
Mhm.
Did that have some influence on your life? And if so, what influence was that in kind of maybe starting or engaging your interest with music and playing music?
Oh, well, because he always had music going on around the house. Every time he had a concert, I was there. Every time he had a rehearsal, I was there. Every time he and his friends, you know, they had a little band, a little funk band. They came to the house. I was just there attentively listening, to, you know, figuring out what's going on and what makes what he's doing so fun, so to speak. So that work ethic of his and that passion he had for making music and teaching music certainly rubbed off.
Well, thank you. It's interesting because a lot of, especially the musicians we've interviewed, have spoke about kind of familial relationship or like kind of generational
Right.
kind of passing down
Right.
of music. So I
Yeah.
think it's interesting. That seems to be a very kind of consistent theme running through these.
Right, and that was again, that's typical of funk music. You know, realizing that, you know, you can't take the music with you, so you need to share it.
So how old were you when you say that you realized you wanted to go into music as a profession or career?
I'm not sure I'm thinking about a career in the 4th grade, but I mean, at that age, it's just fun to do. And I would say that, I would say the turning point for me, because I love the ocean. My dad always took me and my sisters to the ocean, so I love swimming in the ocean, love diving under the water and you know, getting shells and trying to catch fish, and I just loved everything about the ocean until the movie Jaws came out. So okay, no more ocean fun. I don't want to deal with anything that big. So music seemed safer. So about the 8th grade, I decided I'm going to do music for my life. So much for oceanography.
Very nice. That's a great answer.
Well, thank you.
Yes, of course.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Appreciate it.